Hello and welcome along to the Met Office 10-day trend. Now this isn't a detailed forecast day by day for the next week and a half. No, we're looking here at the broader picture, influences on our weather through the weekend and into next week. Now, a word of warning, next week's forecast, there's a lot of uncertainty about it. Now, there's nothing unusual about having uncertainty for the forecast for 7, 8, 9 days ahead. But if you want to know whether it will definitely snow on your house next Thursday or next Friday, well, this isn't the forecast for you. Save yourself 5 or 6 minutes and tune out. If you're still with me, well, thanks for that. Let's take a look at the next few days because we do know that it's turning colder. Widespread frosts returning, there'll be some ice around and in places some patchy snow too. It's beyond the weekend where we start to see much more uncertainty. Now, one thing we are pretty sure of, this cold spell is going to last. But the crucial thing is, which way will our winds be blowing? What type of cold weather will we get? That's where the uncertainty lies, and the wind direction dictates if and where we're going to see any snow. So because of that uncertainty, it is just too early to say at this stage where and when we're going to see any snowfall. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll take a look at the reasons why there's some uncertainty in just a moment. But first of all, let's get back to the next few days because there's plenty going on. A cold front sweeping across the UK, followed by further fronts introducing colder and colder air. Follow those isobars. They point all the way to the Arctic, a widespread frost on Thursday and particularly Friday morning. So yes, it's getting colder, but there'll be plenty of sunshine around until we get to Friday in the west, when we start to see the weather trying again to be influenced from the Atlantic. And this weather fronts will bring some moisture from the Atlantic. So that means there'll be some rain, but as it hits the cold air, well, there could also be some snow. Now, this is a pretty feeble feature. It's slow moving, which means at this moment, there's a lot of uncertainty about how much, if any, snow we'll see. But there is the potential in the west for some on Friday, and it continues to move eastwards before that whole low just kind of slides away and fizzles out into the weekend. So we could here and there see a bit of snow because it will stay cold enough for it to. But at this stage, widespread heavy snowfall is not expected. And Saturday, for most places, will just be a bit of a drab, cold day with rain, drizzle, and a bit of sleet and snow here and there. Now on Sunday, the weather gets a bit more active once more. We see a weather front sliding southwards. That'll have some snow over the Scottish mountains, certainly. And as it dribbles southwards, well, there could be some bits and pieces of snow mixed in with that, possibly Monday morning across East Anglia and the southeast. That's just something to keep a close eye on at this stage. Behind that, well, this bump in the isobars is a ridge of high pressure. That moves in through Monday and Tuesday, and so the early part of next week, we're cold with clear nights leading to frosts, but generally we should see some sunshine by day. It's as we get to the middle of next week that we start to see more uncertainty. I'm going to show you a couple of charts now that explain that really. If you were following our output yesterday, well, you may have seen us talk about the European model, Tuesday's forecast for the middle of next week. Now, we were showing this because it was quite interesting with low pressure here down to the south, lots of isobars across the UK with the winds going around a low like this. If this scenario happened, well, it meant a return to easterly winds. There was a chance that those easterly winds could be coming back, but other computer models were suggesting other things. And now the forecast from the EC model, Wednesday's forecast, is very different. It's similar with still a vague hint of low pressure down to the south, but there's not those isobars. And so we're not drawing in the really cold air from the continent. And if this scenario happened, well, the winds would be light, it would be frosty, and then we'd see some sunshine, but the chance of snow in this scenario is much reduced. Now, one of the complications comes from the way the computer models are handling this wodge of warmer air. This yellowy green colour out in the Atlantic, that is warmer air, and just the position of that raises the uncertainty in how things develop. And for that, and the reason behind the uncertainty next week, well, we need to rewind, come back to current times and also head over to the United States and the western seaboard of the United States in particular. So this is a long way away from the UK, but as we'll see, there's a chain of events that could happen over the next few days. Low pressure bringing wet weather to the western seaboard of the US and rain for California. That moves over the Rockies and then develops into an area of low pressure. And through the weekend, this could really intensify and become actually quite a vicious area of low pressure, working up that eastern seaboard of the US. Into the weekend, lots of isobars on the chart, strong winds, heavy snowfall. That could be a real winter storm on the eastern seaboard. So that is interesting in itself and one to watch. As an area of low pressure and as a pretty intense one, it will be drawing up warmer air from the Caribbean. And behind it, very cold air driving south from the North Pole. And it's that contrast between the cold and the warm that just gives the atmosphere an extra kick. And it's the contrast that drives the jet stream. So that strong contrast means the jet stream really intensifies through the weekend across the eastern seaboard of the US. And then that will have a knock-on effect downstream, early part of next week, into how things behave across the UK. Remember that wodge of green and yellow out in the Atlantic? Well, there it is. But of course, a lot has to happen. There's a lot of energy involved, and we're talking about events thousands of miles away. So that's why there's uncertainty, the position of the jet and this warm air, and ultimately the position of the lows and the highs across the UK next week, which could determine if we see any snowfall. So, as I said, one thing we are pretty sure of is that next week it will be staying cold across the UK, but there's that uncertainty about snowfall. So the message at the moment, keep up to date, and there's loads of ways that you can do that. If the Met Office issues warnings, well, we'll be the first to let you know, either through our websites or our app, or of course you can follow us on social media.